Hey dweebs, I'm Master Torch, and if there's one thing I love to do is to play games the way they are intended. Kingdom Hearts is supposed to be a game where you are the focal point in all action. You are made to feel like the hero. So how can we turn this on its head? How can we completely change this so that not only are you not the focal point, but you don't even really matter. You're a background character. You know what's a game where you're mostly a background character? Pokemon. Think about it. Pokemon has you raised on a pedestal, making it seem like you are the ultimate hero. But at the end of the day, you're not doing anything. You are just giving commands, healing, and sometimes coming up with a bit of a strategy. But most of the time, when it comes down to the end of the day, it's your Pokemon that are running everything. Your Pokemon are the ones who are running the show. They are doing everything. Can we turn Sora into a Pokemon trainer? I think the answer is yes. Not only do I think this is possible, but by the end of this video, I think you, if you've ever struggled with games like this, will be able to learn a couple tricks that will really help make a difference. And these do make a difference. Trust me. In this run, only Donald and Goofy are the ones allowed to deal any meaningful damage. Notice how I said meaningful. That's because they technically can't solo this game completely. In Kingdom Hearts, there are multiple enemies that are considered boss entities. Boss entities have a special property to them where only Sora can outright kill them. Once a boss hits 1 HP, Donald and Goofy will no longer be able to do damage, so here's the rules for this run. 1. Sora cannot attack or hurt normal Heartless. 2. Sora can only finish a fight against the boss once they have hit 1 HP. 3. If the game intends Sora to fight solo, the game should be played normally and Sora will be allowed on the warpath for a bit. 4. If I accidentally hit an enemy, I have to restart the fight. So what can we do with Sora when playing as a Pokemon trainer? Well, firstly, most of our abilities are out the window since they are based on offensive attacking or using magic offensively. Speaking of magic, that is also heavily limited. Fire, Blizzard, Thunder, Gravity are out. So what do we have? First off is our Pokemon Trainer's attack button, the triangle button. With this button pressed, you can summon Donald and Goofy, bringing them towards you. But more importantly, if we log into an enemy and press it, we can send Donald and Goofy to attack the target, allowing us to focus fire and have some strategy out of the gate. Of course, like in Pokemon, we have items which can heal and buff our party. We can use some magic still. Defense magic like Cure, a spell that heals. Arrow, the magical shield spell, and Stop, which does the JoJo stand Zowarudo but like on one guy. They're all still very viable and outright needed in a lot of places. Finally, we have summons. These allow us to fight in a different way than usual and are generally more powerful than fighting normally. But since we can't fight as Sora, it means we're locked to 2 summons, Tinkerbell and Bambi. I imagine most people watching will have a good understanding of Kingdom Hearts, but as a quick explanation, Bambi allows for us to gain more magic back at the cost of temporarily losing Donald and Goofy, while Tinkerbell acts as a passive healer to Sora, and will despawn if Sora is ever brought to 0 HP. She is our second chance essentially. With that out of the way, let's jump in and see where this run goes. Starting off, avoid some copyright. This is for copyright reasons. Then, we need to make some major decisions on how we're going to build Sora with this challenge run. Since attacking is pretty much useless, we decide to throw away the sword and choose magic as our primary weapon. This gives us extra bit of magic that we can use, which later into the game will be essential. Next, we're given 3 questions by the kid versions of Final Fantasy characters. Depending on our answer, it will change the EXP curve. I decided to go with the most balanced experience curve as it didn't seem to matter too much for this run. It's pretty much a vanilla run up to the point we start Destiny Island. We face the tutorial Heartless and fight Darksider, the first boss of the game. On Destiny Island itself, there are some optional fights, but we can ignore them. Instead, we'll just quickly finish the main story here while avoiding all the Heartless on the second day at night until we fight Darkseid again. This boss we have to fight exclusively solo, which we will do multiple times. It's not too hard to deal with. With the boss killed, we're now in Traverse Town and now the real game can kind of begin. First, we need to go into specific rooms that will trigger random animations of Donald and Goofy just missing us, and once we finish, we will get a visit from Leon, who will fight us. Now, funny thing about this fight, we don't have to win it. For most kids growing up this game, we probably didn't win this fight anyway, or even think we could win it. Since the entire point of this challenge run is to make Sora obsolete offensively, I took the opportunity to lose. Or at least I tried to. After which we can now finally start our first boss fight with Donald and Goofy, and admittedly the first fight under these rules are tense. Now that we have Donald and Goofy, we aren't just standing there doing nothing completely. At this point now, our only strategy is being able to use triangle to focus attack enemies. The boss itself is a bit of a challenge. I didn't know this, but apparently every part of the body is considered a boss entity, meaning that this boss is technically 5 bosses in one. There are 2 big problems with this encounter in this fight. The first being that we were so low level there was no defensive or mobility abilities that could be taken to avoid damage, meaning all we could do is run and parry a few attacks, but parrying didn't seem very consistent with this boss. We don't have access to spells or summons yet either. The second problem in this fight is, how much HP does this boss have? Early on, you have no clue how much HP a boss can have at a time. This is because we have not unlocked the scan ability, which won't be unlocked until we've reached level 9. Because of this, we need to make absolutely 100% sure that this boss is at 1 HP for all 5 body parts. And since I have to make 100% sure this boss is at 1 HP, it means this fight took twice as long as it probably should, and with me making a fair few mistakes, especially since I couldn't block, I was losing health. So it was a battle of attrition, and it came down to the wire, but on a risky move, I did finally finish the armor. Defeating the armor opens up the rest of the game, and seeing Donald and Goofy join our party permanently, we can now set up some long-term settings to improve our team. First, equip dodge roll, absolutely required for this run. We also get spell fire, but it's useless outside of a few game mechanics for us. Then we grab a few upgraded weapons and accessories for Donald and Goofy. Turned out I could only afford 1 weapon, so I elected for the Smasher Shield. I decided I was going to see if I could sell anything to afford something for Donald, till I remembered there were some stat ups given to me because of the easy difficulty I put myself on. I decided to distribute them this way. All AP up was given to Sora as he has the most abilities. 4 defense went to Donald, then 4 to Goofy. Finally, 8 power up went to Goofy, which made him scary in melee. This would make Goofy our powerhouse going forward for the early game, but funny enough, without doing too much to his stats, Donald would take over later in the game as the main damage dealer. I'll explain later. With all this set up, we can now start exploring other worlds. I went to go see Alice's world first. We got through most of the story looking for clues and dealing with the fight with the Queen. She's not really much of an issue. Just need to make sure that you're proven innocent so that Donald and Goofy are with you, and then have them destroy the tower while you avoid the cards. I decided at this point I didn't want to risk having another guessing game against the boss, so I went over to Olympus, finished up the story up to the point Cerberus showed up, and left. I'm sure they'll be fine. Oh, should mention that once you begin the starting preliminaries, you can fight normally using our current rules, and once you fight Cloud, you can let yourself lose. But letting ourselves lose early in the game is actually a pretty valuable strategy, especially as we're heading into the Tarzan world where we instantly have to fight a boss solo. Luckily, this is another boss we can lose and have Tarzan come in to save us, but this is the last time we can ever really afford to lose ever again. At one point, we have to rescue Jane and that one gorilla no one knows the name of. The only real way to seemingly free them were to attack this giant fruit. It doesn't really break any rules since if you scan the object, it doesn't show a health bar. We're ready to fight Brian Blessed, but we're still not ready. The lack of the scan ability makes running any of the end world bosses for any of the free starting worlds annoyingly long and hard. So grind we did. I stayed in the Tarzan world and grinded our way up to level 9, which unlocked the scan ability. It didn't take too long to do, it was just a bit boring. Luckily, this would be the only time I would need to do any grinding. With this, we can now start the fight with Clayton. Fighting him was, Oh no. No! Come on, Goofy, come on. Come on! Yeah, this is going to be a problem. Clayton can heal himself, and since Donald and Goofy could get easily taken out by a few hits, it makes it incredibly hard to prevent his healing. What we needed to do was to grind out the longevity of our party members so that they could apply enough pressure long enough that Clayton would not be able to ever heal. Since MP was low early game and Donald couldn't heal, it made sense to swap him out for Tarzan. See, just like Pokemon, swapping out Pokemon for type advantage. Woo! Tarzan can heal. I made sure to load up my inventory with as much healing items as I could load. When the stealth sneaks come in, have Clayton fall off the chameleon, then beat him up and ignore the big bad in the room. This plan worked pretty well, and once we beat him, there wasn't a lot stopping us from taking the early worlds. Cerberus could be easily beaten, and Trickmaster? Not even worth talking about. The boss barely survived longer than 20 seconds. As we were now entering the mid-game, a few new options had become available to us, and I, as a player, could interact more in support role going forward, meaning we had a bit more options. Primarily, we have access to healing now for Sora and Donald. Heading to the Legend World, there isn't a lot to talk about. For the most part, the game can be played almost normally. It's just that one small issue that really came up with this world that really got to me. Use Thunder! Come on! Where is he? There he is. There he is. Oh, come on! Get up here! Get up here, guys! Oh, this... Okay, this is painful. Can we do it? We can't do anything to even stop them. It's just Donald and Goofy that take too long. I hate that bird. I love the man with the voice of the bird. I just hate that bird. Next, we tackled Monstro, the Pinocchio world. Again, not interesting. The only thing worth mentioning is that we can have a boss fight alongside Riku, so I really didn't have to do anything for the first boss fight. The second boss fight, with the same Heartless, is a bit harder, but nothing worth mentioning. Just let Donald and Goofy beat it up while you avoid the acid floor. You can get poisoned in this game, which I'm pretty sure is a mechanic exclusive to this boss. It never shows up again. Those two worlds were easy, but what the next few had in store for us began to get tough. 3 words. The Little Mermaid. All of these defensive abilities we had, gone! Just like the charm out of the live-action remakes, gone! The lack of defense is bad, but what's worse are those blip-looking Heartless who charge at you at breakneck speed, and how am I supposed to avoid this? Anyway, we go for the story, eventually reaching the first Ursula fight, and this is probably the first fight that truly gave me a lot of trouble. I'm gonna be honest, I had no clue what happened with Ursula. I think it's what's required is that Ursula has an ungodly level defense, meaning you can't hurt her through normal means. So what you have to do is use offensive magic on the central cauldron to bounce the magic inside it back at her, which stuns her, does damage, temporarily allowing for Donald and Goofy to attack her normally. But this is so much easier than done. Firstly, you need to look at the color of the cauldron to know what spell to use. I couldn't figure out if you were supposed to use the opposite or the same magic as the color associated with it. It always gave mixed results. The next thing is that we can't directly hurt Ursula, remember? Our rules? I made the decision that attacking the cauldron with magic doesn't count, since the cauldron doesn't have a health bar, and it's the same mechanics as the giant fruit in Tarzan's world. Even then, it's very easy to unintentionally hit her, especially with the blizzard, because that acts like a shotgun, and if you don't hit her, you're surely going to hit the two you surely will hit Flotsam and Jetsam, the pet eels who were supposed to be there for you to beat up and gain MP, but for this magic-based fight, I can't do that. So they just make swings at me. I start running out of MP, and then all I do is just die like a miserable idiot that I am. Just die! Why do I like this game? Second stage Ursula isn't much better. She wasn't insanely hard, but the problem we came into was that her thunder magic, which attacked everyone pretty much all fight round, was dealing too much damage to Donald and Goofy to let them deal damage of any kind. The solution to this though was through elemental resistance. I bought a bunch of thunder rings and equipped Donald and Goofy with all the thunder element protection accessories I had, and just like that, total bliss. The thunder was not super effective, and we took Ursula out quick. Speaking of taking things out quickly, go ahead and take out that subscribe button before it has a chance of being unhit forever. Yeah, that was subtle. Yeah. Seriously though, I do stream on Twitch these days, so it would be nice to see you there. With Ursula being and my most hated world finished through, we can finally say goodbye to that world and take a breather at the Nightmare Before Christmas world. I had a pretty pleasant time here, just reminiscing about how good the movie was. Lock, shock, and barrel. The 3 trick-or-treaters would have been a huge challenge had we not unlocked Arrow. It's really easy to get hit by the 3 triplets, so having this extra defense was great while we waited for Donald and Goofy to pick them off one by one. Oogie Boogie was just slow. You have to wait for his platform to rise up to fight him. But this was a bit slower due to the fact I needed to make sure that either Donald or Goofy were there with me when I raised the platform. Otherwise, I would have to wait another cycle of attacks before trying again. The Oogie House face was a bit annoying. Turns out, the Dark Globs were boss entities requiring me to hit them at 1 HP, but the biggest fight here was not with the Globs, not with the enemies, it was Donald and Goofy's pathfinding. Luckily, you can look away from the two and they will magically teleport to you, taking out the globes, and we're done with this world, which really means that we've got one last Disney world. At this point, the enemies are getting pretty aggressive, and even on the easiest difficulty, because I haven't been grinding levels as much, these enemies are starting to do damage comparable to what's expected in the harder difficulties. The inside of the ship as well is cramped, making avoiding attacks a real pain. Plus, there's Sora's shadow running around, attacking us, and being a general nuisance. I'm going to be fully honest here, that shadow, that bleeding shadow, is the cause of all my pain in this game. There is nothing worse than dealing with that shadow. Let me explain. After exploring the ship and getting close to escaping from the top, you are stopped by your shadow, and you need to fight it. Shadow Sora does lots of moves similar to you, with wide sweeping Keyblade strikes, which will inevitably hit Donald and Goofy a lot. Not only that, but because it's a shadow, like the regular enemies, it can hide in the floor and become temporary. Shadow Sora is a health sponge as well, meaning it takes forever to do a lot of damage. To make things worse, Shadow Sora will then multiply and you have to figure out which one is which, while the fake ones make swings at you. And if that wasn't enough, Shadow Sora will hide completely, then attack at random from the floor. There's nothing you can do here but run and hide. Once he starts doing this as well, it's hard to find moments to send Donald and Goofy out to fight him, making this a total battle of attrition. A battle I rarely ever saw victory of. Initially, I thought to increase my party's equipment, as they were still on their Thunder Resist loadout from Ursula, meaning I could increase the defense and offense. This proved not to help much though. I started looking through abilities to see what could help. There wasn't a lot, but I did notice Goofy was starting to unlock support moves himself. I didn't think of them as very useful right now, but I would soon discover that moves like Evolution and MP Gift would be life-saving. I tried setting myself up with more potions and Evers, and I figured I could use Stop to stop Shadow Sora. Stop was useless, but it was the first spell I could learn that I would be using constant, non-stop for the rest of the game. Even with most micro changes I made, I still struggled. I did learn that standing on a specific part of the captain's bed kept me and sometimes Donald Goofy safe from the floor attack. Alternatively, before then as well, I can use a block ability to stagger Shadow Sora's basic attacks, so that the wide sweeping attacks wouldn't hurt everyone, but the starting frames did make it hard to react to, so that became a prediction game. It took ages, but we finally beat Shadow Sora. Captain Hook wasn't easy either, but was certainly no problem compared to Shadow Sora. The big issue facing him was that during the fight, a ship Heartless would fight alongside Hook. Sometimes Hook will command the Heartless to fire a healing shot, so you need to apply enough pressure on both of the two, so that it can't heal him. Generally though, it's not as strict as fighting Clayton. For the rest of the game, the difficulty doesn't really let up. The challenges I need to face going forward are constant and different with every go around. We're off to Hollow Bastion for the almost final showdown. Hollow Bastion has a lot of fights in store for us, and even before that, the Keyblade is taken away from us. Oh, this changes nothing for us. Under normal rules, we can have Beasts protect us like any other party member could. We make our way to the castle and face Riku to get our Keyblade back. I feel like this fight would have been a lot more impactful if the Keyblade was only returned after defeating Riku to, prove the point about friendship and all that stuff, but the boss fight is the easiest fight in this world. Just block a few attacks and for the most part Riku's down. After this, we climb the top of the tower, which is filled with a fair few annoying regular enemy encounters, but it's fine. Maleficent was next, and her human form is a boring fight. The problem is that she sits on top of this piece of ground that she rips out of the castle and floats above us, just out of reach. I couldn't really find a way to get around this, but to just grind out the slow battle, just trying to find moments where I could take a chance to hurt her. Her dragon form, I was a bit more prepared for. Dragons spit fire, so I dressed everyone up for some fire resist. To make this fight easier, I decided I would use something that for most of the game I had forgot. Summons! Using Tinkerbell for the dragon fight, I managed to keep a passive bit of health on me while I could focus on micromanaging Donald and Goofy's health. They took a lot of constant small damage from the constant fire and the constant stopping around, but it was a slow and constant fight, and luckily, I got it the first time. Problems arose almost immediately as I had forgotten about the ultimate annoyance. The boss fight that made most kids playing this game in the 2000s cry. Ansem Riku. Ansem Riku is the first boss most people have to fight alone since the start of the game. Having no form of support in this fight made most people really struggle against him. As part of our rules, if Sora is alone, he has to be the one to fight. But since we've spent an entire game decking out Donald and Goofy into Ultra Killing Machines, we by comparison are super weak. And since we're on the easiest difficulty, we're not getting any extra help. No, this ain't like the level 1 run, where you actually get a bit of help for staying low. Not only that, but I had to play the game in one very specific way that now trying to fight him with normal methods, I feel really rusty, really out of place. I feel like I'm playing a different game altogether that I shouldn't be playing. I can consistently get him through his first phase of the fight, but what really starts to make this fight a grind is once he activates his dark aura. His attacks are a lot harder to interrupt and can unleash a lot of area of effect attacks. You can glide in one corner of the arena to safely avoid this, but once he starts this, he's pretty much going to forever stay in this dark aura mode, alternating between the dark aura moves and his teleport attack. Finding any opening for attack is difficult. I made an accident and lost the footage of me beating him, but I remember my method for winning, mostly consisting of spamming arrow and waiting for his dark aura attack to punish him, while swiping in a few extra hits while he was winding up the teleport attack. After defeating Ansem Riku, the final world had finally been unlocked. We need to make one more return trip for the story to lock the world. This meant facing against one more boss, and this one's just it's awful! It wasn't bad by difficulty, it was just so long. The behemoth is a boss that can only be hurt by targeting its horn. Its horn for most of the fight is unreachable to Donald and Goofy. This is a fight where Sora is supposed to do all the heavy lifting. After the horn takes enough damage, the behemoth will fall to the floor into easy to reach access for Donald and Goofy to hit. But we need to hit the horn before we do that, don't we? Luckily, there is a few things helping us for this boss. For one, it's weak to gravity, and Donald seems to know this fact pretty well. It's also like herding cats, but you can get Donald and Goofy to get up on the Hydra's back to attack the horn. They often fall off in seconds, but it's literally better than nothing. This is a boss fight, by the way, that I had to do 3 times. But there was a way to improve the speed of which we can kill the Bios. Back in the story, we race our way to the world that never was and go for a barrage of really tough Heartless. The Heartless at this stage are just pure evil, as most of their hits can bring me down to about half health in one go or so. I needed to keep all my toes at all times. These enemies are actually tough enough, I had to develop a small strategy. The sword-wielding Heartless have a lot of invincibility attacks and will often disappear to attack randomly one of the 3 party members. What we can do while this attack is happening is bring Donald and Goofy over to the sword that marks its location. The Heartless will return to pick up its sword, and we can send the 2 to punish this recovery period. The Shadow Ball guys, I found the best thing to do against them was nothing. Yep, nothing. Often when playing, it's best to focus fire at specific enemies so that they can be less of an interruption to Donald and Goofy. The problem with these guys is that they just simply teleport around too often for that to be a valid strategy. It really is just best to let the party AI go for the nearest enemy to fight them like they do by default. This way you're doing more damage per minute than if they were chasing like a wild goose after one specific Heartless. The Angels, I don't really know. They're the most dangerous by far, so usually I found focus firing them first was the best option since they are capable of a lot of area of effect spells and were the most dangerous to me since if I die the game is over. Around this time, I discovered I somehow missed that Goofy had learnt MP Gift. Previously, my strategy was having Goofy use the ability Evolution to heal the group whenever he gains free MP bars. However, with the MP gift, he could transfer all free MP over to either myself or Donald, and we could use this extra MP to use more magic. This is incredible, as it increases Donald's magic output, which is really strong late game, and allows for me to have some form of regaining MP, which has always been a problem since the start of the game. With this new ability unlocked, we faced against the second behemoth, and because Donald was receiving way more MP, he was able to cast gravity a lot more often. With this, we managed to cut down by a third of the time it previously took. Realizing how powerful having MP is, I decided to do a quick detour and head over to Traverse Town, where I could do the first Winnie the Pooh minigame. This gave me the ability to summon Bambi. Bambi works normally by sort of fighting on his own and receiving extra MP and health for the bigger and longer combos he does on enemies, but even if we don't attack anyone, we can still gain MP orbs from just walking around. Using Bambi like this, I can risk having all the enemies focus on me, but allowing myself to recharge my MP to full every fight. We also unlock Spellbinder from Merlin, which increases our MP by 2 and increases the duration of a summon. There really wasn't a lot more for us to do before attempting the final battles to beat the game. I ensured that everyone had the best equipment and accessories they could have, and set up for the final set of battles. Yeah, the equipment had to get changed as we faced against another fire-centric boss. The devil guy from Fantasia that no one really remembers his name. Chernabog. The Chernobog, for a lack of better term, is just a worse giant Ursula fight, but make no mistake, he's an incredibly rough boss to fight. He will constantly blow you back with wind, uses large sweeping fire moves, and will even set himself on fire just so that you can get it set on fire. The more you hurt him, the bigger the fire gets too, so it becomes a near impossibility to avoid it. A player might, but Donald and Goofy don't react nearly as quickly enough, which is why we desperately need fire resist on this fight. This was a great reason for why Goofy needed to have MP gift, as the constant fire damage the party took. I don't know if this would have been possible to beat with potions alone. You might have noticed I've been stingy with items in this run, and that's simply because we've been so poor for the whole game, I can't afford to waste too many of them. Chernobog will unleash various flying blue wisps. It's best that you become the target of these so that Donald and Goofy aren't taking too much damage, because God knows they will be if you don't. Eventually the boss was defeated, and that was our last Disney boss. All that's left was to face Ansem, and yeah, I only talked about 2 of the 3 behemoth battles, didn't I? Before we can face Ansem, there is one more final hallway where the Heartless of the world will try to stop us from progressing. First is our 3rd and final behemoth, which at this point we've perfected our strategy and also had a major staff buff since the last fight, and we were able to beat this behemoth in 3 minutes! Just for comparison's sake, it took 30 minutes to beat the first one. A long battle of the Heartless of this world in various waves. I already talked about my strategy to beat these guys, but this was the only time I had to bring out Bambi, as this marathon of constant fights was getting to my MP pretty bad. Once finished, this was it. The final battle. The Pokemon champion. The thing about the final battles, however, is that they would require me to fight a lot on my own. I tried my best to account for this because I am really weak compared to someone playing this casually. First fight is against Ansem with Donald and Goofy. This one isn't too horrible. Ansem will often switch between various long and short range attacks, and the short range attacks are very easily punishable by Donald and Goofy. Ansem will mostly focus on Sora throughout the fight, so use that to your advantage, and keep in mind that stop does not work in this fight. When he starts shouting, "Submit!" make sure to avoid getting hit at all costs, as his guardian will latch onto you and deal constant damage, and sometimes grabbing you if you try to attack. Which, why are you trying to attack? That's literally against the point of this entire fight. Another thing to note is to not block his long range attacks. They have a habit of hitting him back, which would be against the rules. I lost my first attempt of the fight because of this. Eventually he will go down and will prompt you to give chase, which from this point onward, you will be on your own. This is the last time I can change my loadout. I decided that my best chances of winning were to go as offensively as possible. The first solo fight is against the Darksider, like you know at the start of the game. There's really no difference to this fight, just the boss is a bit tougher now, but now that we have access to high jump, we can reach its weak spots a lot easier now. I can usually clear this boss in about a single cycle of its moveset, what's often referred to as Ansem 2. This fight can really take me out quick. So yeah, that charge move can take you out pretty nastily. The best way to deal with it is to block it, but the timing can be difficult to get correct. Again, we need to be aware of the submit attack. Getting hit by that, the only way to survive is to apply arrow and just keep healing, hoping for the best. But it's MP intensive. If I don't get arrow out, then this guy is going to take out half my HP in one go. Most of his other attacks are pretty easy to punish, and when he sends his guardian to protect him, it's a good time to pop a heal or arrow in. Sometimes both. His ultimate move is laughable. When he screams, "My strength returns," just roll around in circles around him, and people think this game somehow isn't like Dark Souls, huh? With all of this in mind, you can take him down provided your build can deal at least okay damage to him. This fight can go for a decent while if you're not prepared, and that charge attack will catch you off guard. Once you're done, you're in the true final battle. In this fight, you're going to be solo taking on Ansem in flight, just like you were back in Peter Pan. He's not exactly too tough, but his light pillars will make it a tad annoying to get a lot of hits on him at once, making this more of a battle of attrition. Take a shot every time I say battle of attrition. Despite his wide hit attacks, they don't actually hit you a lot. Also, try not to get hit by the Heartless that gets summoned in. Once you take him out, you need to fight the rest of the body of the flesh ship. Once that's completed, you'll be reunited with Goofy and can play back to the rule set again. I recommend helping Goofy as much in this section as you can. Make sure he has a constant arrow on because I could barely hear the music over Goofy's screams of pain. Worth noting, the orbs in the room where you reunite with your party count as boss entities. You and Goofy will need to face off against the face of the flesh ship. Again, Just arrow and heal, and this fight is barely worth mentioning. You won't need to worry about MP management either, as Goofy will just give all his MP to you. Once defeated, the mouth will open, revealing a portal to Donald. The fight inside here is tough since you can't see the enemies in here and are much more aggressive towards you, but don't worry, you'll be fine so long as you pay attention. You'll need to defeat the core of the ship once you escape the room, which takes seconds. Then, you're finally back facing Ansem's human body. The light beams are much more aggressive, but those are after you, not the rest of the party. Don't keep too far back from the fight. Ansem does a spell that pulls you back into some dark orb that hurts you being near it. Keep as close to Ansem as you can during this, and heal your party as they will inevitably die from it pretty quickly. Since your party can keep constant pressure on Ansem, you can finally lay the final hit to beat the game! And we did it! Can you beat the game without ever throwing a hit? No! But does this game allow you to make Donald and Goofy properly powerful enough that you can make a difference in the fight? Yes! Yes! They can very much hold the game up if you let them. In a weird way, you can make this game into a game of Pokemon. Actually, now that I think about it, Donald and Goofy are out at the same time, meaning this is a tournament double format. Meaning this game is more like 10 to... Oh, god damn it, we failed from the beginning! Ah!